Jake Martinez wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stepped off the shuttle. The air on Kepler 442c felt thick and warm like breathing soup. He looked around at the strange purple trees and orange grass that covered the planet. Everything here was different from Earth. "Remember, Jake," Captain Lisa Hayes said through his radio, "this is our first real meeting with the Zephyrians. Don't mess this up." Jake nodded even though she could not see him. He was nervous. As the team's expert on alien life, he had studied everything they knew about the Zephyrians. But books and videos were different from meeting them face to face. The Zephyrian settlement looked like a collection of crystal domes. They sparkled in the light of the planet's twin suns. Jake could see figures moving inside the clear walls. His heart beat faster as he walked toward the largest dome. Dr. Peter Wong walked beside him carrying his translation device. "The language program should work," he said, "but their body language might be harder to understand." Jake reached the entrance of the dome. A tall figure appeared at the doorway. The Zephyrian male was almost 7 feet tall with skin that looked like blue crystal. His skin glowed softly with a steady blue light. "I am Elder Keth," the alien said in broken English. "You are the humans from the skyship." "Yes," Jake replied. "I am Jake Martinez. This is Dr. Peter Wong. We come in peace." Elder Keth's skin shifted to a warmer blue color. Jake guessed this meant he was pleased. The elder led them into the dome. Inside, more Zephyrians waited. Their crystal skin came in different colors. Some were blue like Elder Keth, others were green, purple, or silver. All of them stared at the humans with large, bright eyes. Jake noticed something interesting. Most of the Zephyrians stood close together in a group. But one young female stayed far in the back, almost hidden behind the others. Her skin was a pale blue color, much lighter than the rest. While the other aliens looked curious, her skin kept changing colors quickly. Purple, then silver, then back to pale blue. "This is our community," Elder Keth said, his arms spread wide. "We welcome you to learn about our ways." The meeting went well. The Zephyrians showed Jake and Dr. Wong around their settlement. They explained how they grew food in crystal gardens and how they used their natural skin light to communicate over long distances. Jake took notes on everything, but his eyes kept drifting back to the young female in the back. She never came forward. She never spoke. But Jake could tell she was listening to everything. When Dr. Wong asked about their mathematics, her skin flashed bright gold for just a moment. When Jake mentioned human space travel, her skin turned the same excited gold color again. "Who is the young one in the back?" Jake asked Elder Keth quietly. The elder looked where Jake was pointing. His skin grew slightly darker blue. "That is Zara. She's very smart, maybe the smartest of us all. But she does not like to meet new people." "She seems interested in what we're talking about," Jake said. Elder Keth made a sound that might have been laughter. "Zara loves to learn. She studies the stars and the mathematics of space. But she becomes nervous around strangers. Her skin shows her feelings, as you can see." Jake watched Zara more carefully. Every time someone mentioned science or space, her skin would glow bright for a moment. Then she would seem to remember where she was and fade back to nervous purple. The first meeting lasted 3 hours. When it was time to leave, Jake walked past the group of Zephyrians to reach the door. As he passed near Zara, she looked up at him quickly. For just a moment, their eyes met. Her skin flashed the brightest silver he had seen all day. Then she looked away and turned almost invisible pale. On the shuttle back to the ship, Dr. Wong was excited. "Did you see their technology?" The crystal growing methods could change everything we know about agriculture. But Jake was thinking about something else. He was thinking about Zara and the way her skin had lit up when their eyes met. There was something about her that he could not forget. Back on the ship, Jake reported to Captain Hayes. The first meeting went very well. They seemed friendly and willing to share knowledge. "Any problems?" the captain asked. Jake shook his head. "No problems. But there's one Zephyrian who caught my attention. A young female named Zara. Elder Keth says she's very intelligent but shy around strangers." Captain Hayes looked at him with a warning expression. "Remember, Jake, we're here for science and diplomacy. Don't get personally involved with the locals." "Of course not," Jake said quickly. But even as he said it, he found himself planning what questions he would ask on his next visit. Maybe he could find a way to get Zara to talk to him. Her obvious intelligence intrigued him, and he wanted to know more about what made her skin glow so bright when she was excited. That night, Jake lay in his small room on the ship and looked out the window at the planet below. Somewhere down there in a crystal dome was a shy alien girl who seemed to know more about the universe than she let on. Jake found himself looking forward to tomorrow's visit more than he had expected. He did not know that far below on the planet's surface, Zara was also lying awake, her skin flickering between silver and gold as she thought about the strange human, with the kind eyes who had looked at her like she mattered. Jake returned to the Zephyrian settlement 3 days later. This time he came alone. Captain Hayes had agreed that one person would be less threatening for building trust with the aliens. Elder Keth met him at the dome entrance. "Welcome back, Jake Martinez. We are happy to see you again." Jake looked around quickly as they entered the main area. He spotted Zara in her usual place at the back of the group. Today her skin was a soft pink color instead of the nervous purple from before. When she saw him looking at her, the pink grew slightly brighter. "Today we will show you our learning center," Elder Keth said. He led Jake to a smaller dome connected to the main one. Inside, crystal walls were covered with strange symbols and numbers that glowed with their own light. "This is where our young ones study," the elder explained, "and where Zara does most of her research." At the mention of her name, Zara stepped forward slightly. She was still far from Jake, but closer than she had been during the first meeting. Her skin flickered between pink and silver. Jake studied the glowing symbols on the walls. They looked like mathematics, but more complex than anything he had seen. "These equations, they're about space travel?" "Yes," Elder Keith said. "We have been studying the movement of stars and planets for many generations. Zara has made new discoveries that even our oldest scholars do not fully understand." Jake felt his excitement grow. "Could someone explain these equations to me? I'm a scientist too, but these are far beyond human mathematics." Elder Keth turned to look at Zara. "Perhaps you could help our guest understand, young one." Zara's skin immediately turned deep purple. She shook her head quickly and backed away. I cannot," she whispered. Her voice was soft and musical, but Jake could barely hear it. "It's okay," Jake said gently. "Maybe another time." But as Jake continued to study the walls, he found himself getting confused by a particularly complex section. The symbols seemed to twist and fold in ways that hurt his brain to look at. He stared at them for several minutes, trying to make sense of the patterns. "These dimensions," he muttered to himself. "How can space fold back on itself like this?" Behind him, he heard a soft sound. Zara had moved closer, though she was still several feet away. Her skin was cycling through different colors rapidly, like she was fighting with herself about something. Jake continued to struggle with the equations. He pulled out his tablet and tried to copy the symbols, but they were too complex. "I don't understand how matter can exist in the same place as itself," he said, frustrated. Suddenly, Zara stepped forward. Her skin blazed with bright white light like a small sun. No, you are thinking about it wrong," she said, her voice much stronger than before. Jake turned to look at her, surprised. Elder Keth and the other Zephyrians also stared. Zara had never spoken so boldly to a stranger before. "The space does not fold back on itself," Zara continued, her skin still glowing white with excitement. "It creates new layers, like pages in a book. Each page is separate, but they are all part of the same story." Jake felt his mind beginning to understand. "So the matter exists on different layers of reality?" "Yes." Zara's skin grew even brighter. She moved closer to Jake, all her shyness forgotten in her excitement about the science, and with the right energy you can move between the layers. That is how we travel far distances quickly. For the next hour, Zara explained concepts that made Jake's head spin. She talked about dimensions that humans could not see, and energy sources that existed between the layers of space. Her skin stayed bright white the entire time, and she used her hands to draw diagrams in the air that glowed with soft light. Jake realized he was seeing something incredible. This shy alien girl was not just intelligent, she was a genius beyond anything he had imagined. Her understanding of physics and space was centuries ahead of human science. "This is amazing," Jake said when she finished. "On Earth, our best scientists are just beginning to think about some of these ideas. You've already figured out how to use them." Zara's skin turned a warm golden color. "You really understand what I'm saying?" "Some of it," Jake admitted, "but I want to learn more." Would you be willing to teach me?" The golden color grew brighter. "You would want to learn from me?" "Of course," Jake said. "You know things that could help both our species. We could learn from each other." Elder Keth watched this exchange with surprise. He had never seen Zara talk so much to a stranger. The other Zephyrians whispered among themselves. their skin colors shifting with amazement. Over the following weeks, Jake returned to the settlement every day. Each time, Zara became a little more comfortable with him. She would explain more about Zephyrian science and mathematics. Jake shared human discoveries and theories in return. Jake learned that Zara could see things that humans could not. Her eyes could perceive dimensions that were invisible to human vision. This ability made her incredibly valuable to her people, but it also made her different from other Zephyrians. Most of them could only see 2 or 3 extra dimensions. Zara could see 7. "It makes me feel alone sometimes," she admitted one day. Her skin had turned a soft blue color. "I see things that others cannot. I understand things that they do not. It is hard to explain what you see when others are blind to it." "I think I understand," Jake said. "On Earth, I often felt the same way. I love science and learning about the universe, but most people don't find it as exciting as I do." Zara's skin shifted to a warm pink. "You do understand," she said softly. As the days passed, Jake noticed that Zara's behavior around him changed completely. When he arrived each morning, her skin would immediately turn bright colors. She would hurry to greet him, no longer hiding in the back of the group. She began to smile when she saw him, and her voice grew stronger and more confident during their conversations. Dr. Wong visited occasionally and was amazed by what Jake was learning. The applications of their dimensional science could revolutionize space travel, he told Captain Hayes. Jake has established an incredible research partnership. But Jake was beginning to realize that what he felt for Zara was becoming more than just scientific interest. He looked forward to seeing her bright smile and hearing her musical laugh when she was excited about a new discovery. He started to worry when her skin turned sad colors, and he felt proud when she glowed with happiness. He told himself it was just friendship. After all, she was an alien. But deep down, Jake knew his feelings were growing into something much more complicated. After 2 months of daily visits, Jake began to notice that Zara was acting differently. It started with small changes that he almost missed. When he arrived at the settlement each morning, her skin would flash deep red and gold colors before settling into her usual happy pink. At first, Jake thought she was just excited to see him. But the red and gold colors kept appearing more often. They would flash across her skin when she laughed at something he said, or when their hands accidentally touched while looking at star charts together. Then Zara began bringing him gifts. The first was a small crystal formation that looked like a twisted star. "I made this for you," she said, her skin cycling through red, gold, and silver colors. "It shows the dimensional paths we studied yesterday." Jake accepted the crystal gratefully. It was beautiful and clearly took a lot of work to create. "Thank you, Zara, this is amazing." The gift-giving continued. Every few days, Zara would present him with something new. Crystal sculptures, pressed flowers from their purple forests, carved stones with mathematical formulas. Each time, her skin would display the same red and gold pattern when she gave them to him. Jake kept all the gifts in his room on the ship. Dr. Wong noticed them during one visit. "The Zephyrian girl has been busy," he said, examining a particularly complex crystal structure. "These must take days to make." "She's very talented," Jake replied. "And generous." Dr. Wong frowned slightly. "Jake, you need to be careful. I've been studying their culture more deeply. Gift-giving might mean something different to them than it does to humans." But Jake dismissed the warning. He and Zara had become close friends. Of course she would want to share her art with him. He started bringing her small gifts in return. Earth flowers pressed in plastic, photos of human cities, books about Earth science translated into Zephyrian text. Zara's behavior continued to change in other ways. She began positioning herself closer to him during their daily lessons. Where she once stood several feet away, now she would sit right beside him. Sometimes, when she was explaining a difficult concept, she would touch his arm or shoulder to get his attention. Each touch made her skin pulse with rainbow colors. Jake enjoyed these moments of closeness. Zara's friendship meant a lot to him, and he was glad she felt comfortable enough to be physically affectionate. On Earth, friends often hugged or touched each other casually. He assumed it was the same for Zephyrians. The other aliens in the settlement began treating Jake differently too. Where they had once been polite but distant, now they approached him with obvious respect. Elder Keth would bow slightly when greeting him. Other Zephyrians would step aside to let him pass and would offer him the best seats during community gatherings. You have become very important to our people, Elder Keth told him one day. Zara speaks of you constantly. She says you understand her mind like no one else ever has. Jake felt proud but also confused. I'm just here to learn and share knowledge. Elder Keth's skin shifted to a knowing blue color. Yes, of course. Learning is very important for bonding. Jake didn't understand what the elder meant by bonding, but he didn't want to seem rude by asking too many questions. The changes became more obvious as time went on. Zara's family members began approaching Jake with formal invitations. Her mother, a tall Zephyrian with green-tinted crystal skin, presented him with elaborate ceremonial objects, carved staffs, decorated headpieces, and flowing robes made from some kind of shimmering fabric. These are for the upcoming celebration, Zara's mother explained through the translation device. Her skin glowed with warm yellow colors. You will need proper attire. Jake politely declined the gifts. Thank you, but I couldn't accept such valuable items. I'm just a visitor here. Zara's mother looked confused, her skin flickering between yellow and puzzled purple. She spoke quickly in her own language with Elder Keth, who also seemed surprised by Jake's response. Perhaps later, Elder Keth said diplomatically, when you are ready. Jake reported these interactions to his superiors on the ship. Captain Hayes became increasingly concerned. Jake, I think you're getting too personally involved with these aliens. You're spending every day down there. Maybe it's time to take a step back. But Captain, the scientific exchange is incredible. I'm learning things that could advance human knowledge by decades. Dr. Wong supported Jake's position. The research benefits are undeniable. However, Lisa has a point about maintaining proper boundaries. I am maintaining boundaries, Jake insisted. Zara and I are friends, nothing more. The gifts and invitations are just their way of being hospitable. But even as he said it, Jake felt uncertain. Lately, when he looked into Zara's large, bright eyes, he felt something that went beyond friendship. When she smiled at him, her skin glowing with happiness, his heart beat faster. When she laughed at his jokes, he felt proud and warm inside. He told himself these feelings were natural. Zara was intelligent, kind, and beautiful in her alien way. It made sense that he would care about her, but he was careful not to let his emotions show. The last thing he wanted was to complicate their scientific partnership or create diplomatic problems. Meanwhile, Zara seemed to be growing bolder every day. She had gone from a shy girl who barely spoke to someone who sought out Jake's company constantly. She would find excuses to visit him when he was working with other Zephyrians. She would laugh loudly at his jokes and stand close enough that he could feel the warmth from her glowing skin. One day, while they were working on translating human physics concepts into Zephyrian mathematics, Zara moved so close that her shoulder touched his. Her skin immediately blazed with brilliant red and gold patterns. Zara, Jake said gently, you're glowing very brightly today. She looked down at her own skin and blushed, if that was what Zephyrians did. Her color shifted to softer pink tones. I am sorry. It is hard to control sometimes when I am happy. You don't need to apologize. I just want to make sure you're comfortable. Zara looked up at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. I'm very comfortable with you, Jake. More comfortable than I have ever been with anyone. That evening, Jake walked back to his shuttle feeling more confused than ever. Zara's behavior was becoming harder to interpret as simple friendship. But he didn't want to assume anything that might be wrong. Alien cultures were complex, and he was still learning about Zephyrian customs. He decided to ask Dr. Wong to research Zephyrian social behaviors more thoroughly. Maybe understanding their culture better would help him figure out what was really happening. Jake had no idea that his innocent friendship with a shy alien girl was about to become something much more complicated than he had ever imagined. The day of the Zephyrian celebration arrived with unusual excitement in the settlement. Jake had been invited to observe their most important seasonal festival, something they called the Night of Bonded Stars. Elder Keth explained that it happened only once every few years when their planets' 3 moons aligned perfectly. Jake arrived at the settlement to find it transformed. Strings of glowing crystals hung between the domes, casting beautiful rainbow patterns across the ground. The Zephyrians wore their finest clothing and their skin glowed brighter than Jake had ever seen. Everyone seemed to pulse with anticipation. Tonight is very special, Elder Keth told him. It is when our young ones make their most important life choices. Jake found a good spot to watch the ceremonies. Dr. Wong had remained on the ship to monitor communications. so Jake was alone among the aliens. He pulled out his recording device to document the cultural event for their research files. The celebration began with music that sounded like wind chimes mixed with singing. Young Zephyrians performed dances that made their skin flash in coordinated patterns. Jake was fascinated by how they used their color-changing abilities as part of their art. As the evening went on, Jake noticed that many of the dances seemed to be performed in pairs. Young males and females would dance together, their skin colors matching and flowing in harmony. Elder Keth explained that these were traditional courtship dances, where young couples would declare their intentions to bond for life. Jake watched several couples perform, impressed by the beauty and complexity of their movements. Then the crowd grew quiet and Elder Keth stood up. "Now we will see the ritual of bonded stars," he announced. Jake expected another couple to step forward, but instead a single figure emerged from the crowd. It was Zara, but she looked completely different from the shy girl he knew. She wore an elaborate headdress made of thousands of tiny crystals that caught the light of the 3 moons. Her usual simple clothing had been replaced by flowing robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. Most shocking of all was her skin. Instead of her usual pale blue or nervous purple, Zara's entire body blazed with the most brilliant display Jake had ever seen. Gold, crimson, and electric blue patterns raced across her crystal skin like living lightning. She looked powerful, confident, and absolutely stunning. Jake stared in amazement as Zara moved to the center of the gathering. The shy girl who used to hide behind others was now the focus of everyone's attention, and she seemed completely comfortable with it. "What is she doing?" Jake whispered to Elder Keth. The elder's skin flickered with what looked like amusement. "She is performing the ritual of bonded stars. This is when a Zephyrian declares their choice of life partner." Jake felt his heart skip a beat. "Life partner? You mean she's getting married?" "In a way, yes. But first, she must perform the ritual to show her chosen one that she is ready for bonding." Jake looked around the crowd, trying to figure out which young Zephyrian male Zara had chosen. But as she began her dance, something strange happened. Instead of dancing in a circle or moving randomly, Zara's movements were clearly directed toward one specific spot in the audience. She was dancing directly at Jake. At first, he thought it was a coincidence. Maybe she was just nervous and looking at him for moral support. But as the dance continued, it became impossible to ignore. Every graceful movement, every spectacular display of color, every gesture was aimed straight at him. The other Zephyrians began chanting in rhythm with her movements. Their skin colors pulsed in time with the music. Jake felt the power and beauty of the moment, but he was also growing increasingly confused and worried. "Elder Keth," he said quietly, "why is she looking at me?" But before the elder could answer, Jake's communicator crackled to life. Dr. Wong's urgent voice filled his ear. "Jake, you need to understand what's happening. I just finished translating the ancient texts about Zephyrian mating rituals. This isn't just a dance. This is a formal declaration of intent to bond. When a female performs the ritual of bonded stars, she's announcing her choice of life partner to the entire community." Jake's blood ran cold. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that all the gifts, the touching, the color changes when she's around you, those were traditional courtship behaviors. In Zephyrian culture, when you accepted her gifts and allowed her physical contact, you were signaling that you accepted her courtship. Jake, according to their customs, you've been in a formal relationship with her for weeks." Jake stared at Zara in horror and amazement. She continued her dance, her skin blazing with colors that declared her love and commitment to everyone watching. The crowd chanted louder, celebrating what they saw as the completion of a successful courtship. "But I didn't know," Jake whispered into his communicator. "I thought we were just friends." "That doesn't matter now," Dr. Wong's voice was urgent. "If you reject her publicly after she's performed this ritual, it will humiliate her in front of her entire community. It could also destroy our diplomatic relations with the Zephyrians." Jake felt trapped. Around him, the Zephyrians watched expectantly. Zara's dance was reaching its climax, her skin so bright it almost hurt to look at. She moved with grace and power, putting her heart and soul into every movement. Looking at her, Jake realized something that shocked him. This wasn't just about diplomacy or cultural misunderstanding anymore. Watching Zara perform this beautiful, bold declaration of love, he felt his own feelings rising to the surface. The shy girl who had become his closest friend, The brilliant mind who had taught him so much. The kind soul who had shared her deepest thoughts with him. She was asking him to be her partner in life. Jake, Dr. Wong's voice continued. Captain Hayes is ordering you to return to the ship immediately. We need to figure out how to handle this without causing an interstellar incident. But Jake barely heard him. He was watching Zara pour her heart out in front of her entire community, declaring her love for him in the most public and vulnerable way possible. The shy girl had found the courage to be incredibly bold, all because of what she felt for him. Zara's dance reached its final moment. She stopped directly in front of Jake, her skin cycling through every color of the rainbow. The crowd fell silent, waiting for his response. Elder Keth and all the other Zephyrians watched him with hopeful expressions. Jake looked into Zara's bright eyes and saw love, hope, and terrifying vulnerability. She had overcome her shyness to make this declaration. Now it was his turn to decide what kind of person he wanted to be. The communicator crackled again with orders from Captain Hayes, but Jake reached down and turned it off. Some decisions were too important to make based on fear or protocol. Some moments required courage that matched the courage being shown to you. Jake took a deep breath and stepped forward into the ritual circle. When Jake stepped into the ritual circle, the entire Zephyrian community gasped. Zara's skin blazed so brightly that she looked like a living star. Her eyes widened with surprise and joy as Jake moved toward her. I don't know your dances, Jake said loud enough for everyone to hear, but I understand what you're asking me. The crowd watched in fascination as Jake began to move. He couldn't change colors like Zara, but he found his own way to respond to her declaration. He clapped his hands in rhythm with the chanting. He moved in simple patterns around her, showing that he accepted her invitation into the sacred space. Then Jake did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He pulled out his tablet and activated its light display function. The screen projected patterns of blue and white light that danced across the ground around them. It wasn't the same as Zephyrian skin changing, but it was his human way of adding color to their bonding ritual. Zara laughed with delight, her skin flashing gold and silver. She began to dance around Jake's projected lights, incorporating them into her movements. Together they created something new, a ceremony that honored both of their species. The crowd cheered and began to glow brighter. Elder Keth stepped forward, his skin pulsing with deep blue satisfaction. You accept her choice? He asked Jake formally. Jake looked at Zara, who was watching him with hopeful, nervous excitement. In that moment, he realized that his feelings for her had grown far beyond friendship. She was brilliant, kind, brave, and beautiful. The connection they shared was real, even if it crossed species boundaries. Yes, Jake said clearly. I accept. Zara's skin exploded in the most spectacular display of color Jake had ever seen. She threw her arms around him, laughing and crying at the same time. The entire community erupted in celebration, their combined skin glow turning the night into a festival of living light. But the celebration was interrupted by the sound of shuttles approaching. Captain Hayes had arrived with a security team, clearly intending to extract Jake from what she saw as a dangerous diplomatic situation. The captain stormed into the settlement, her face grim. Jake, step away from the alien immediately. We're leaving. The Zephyrians' happy colors faded to confused purples and alarmed reds. Elder Keth moved protectively in front of Zara and Jake. There is no danger here, he said carefully. We are celebrating a bonding ceremony. That's exactly the problem, Captain Hayes snapped. She looked at Jake with anger and disappointment. Do you have any idea what you've done? You can't marry an alien. The complications alone could destroy both our missions. Jake felt Zara tense beside him, her skin shifting to hurt purple colors. She might not understand all the English words, but she could tell that the human captain was rejecting their bonding. Captain Hayes, Jake said firmly, I need you to understand something. What happened here tonight wasn't a mistake or a diplomatic accident. I made a choice, and I'm standing by it. You're not thinking clearly, the captain argued. The stress of first contact, the isolation, the exotic environment, it's all affecting your judgment. Dr. Wong, who had arrived with the captain's team, stepped forward. Actually, Lisa, I think Jake might be thinking more clearly than any of us. He looked around at the Zephyrians, who were watching the argument with growing concern. Look at what he's accomplished here. The scientific exchange alone has been worth the entire mission. And now he's created a bond that could benefit both species for generations. It's not that simple, Captain Hayes insisted. There are regulations, protocols, legal complications. Since when do regulations matter more than love? Jake asked. He took Zara's hand, and her skin immediately brightened to warm gold. Zara and I have built something real together. She's taught me things about the universe that no human has ever known. I've helped her overcome her shyness and shown her that her intelligence is valued. We make each other better. Elder Keth spoke up, his voice calm but firm. Captain of humans, your Jake has been accepted into our community through ancient ritual. To break this bond now would bring shame to both him and our Zara. It would also end the friendship between our peoples. Captain Hayes looked around at the glowing, expectant faces surrounding her. She was outnumbered and she knew it. But more than that, she could see the genuine connection between Jake and Zara. Despite her concerns about protocol, she had to admit that their relationship seemed to be built on real affection and respect. Dr. Wong pressed the advantage. Lisa, think about the bigger picture. This bonding could be the foundation for the first successful human-alien colony. Jake and Zara together represent the future of interspecies cooperation. After a long moment, Captain Hayes sighed. Jake, are you absolutely sure about this? Once we report this back to Earth, there's no going back. You'll be making history, but you'll also be facing challenges no human has ever dealt with. Jake looked at Zara, who was watching him with trusting eyes, despite not understanding most of the conversation. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The captain nodded reluctantly. Then I guess we're going to need new protocols. The crisis passed and the celebration resumed with even more enthusiasm. The Zephyrians were delighted that the humans had accepted the bonding, and Captain Hayes found herself being welcomed as an honored guest. Over the following days, Jake and Zara worked together to plan their future. They would split their time between the human ship and the Zephyrian settlement, serving as ambassadors for both species. Their combined knowledge would be used to develop new technologies that neither species could have created alone. Zara's dimensional sight, combined with human engineering skills, led to breakthroughs in faster-than-light travel. Jake's scientific training, enhanced by Zephyrian mathematics, opened new fields of research that amazed scholars on both worlds. More importantly, their relationship proved that the barriers between species were not as impossible to cross as everyone had believed. Other humans began forming friendships with Zephyrians, and several more cross-species partnerships developed over time. 6 months after the bonding ceremony, Jake and Zara stood together on a balcony overlooking the growing joint settlement. Human domes now stood alongside Zephyrian crystal structures, and children from both species played together in the gardens. Do you ever regret your choice? Zara asked, her skin a contented blue-green color. Jake pulled her close, amazed as always by the warmth that radiated from her crystal skin. Never. You were shy at first, but you surprised me with the boldest declaration of love I've ever seen. You taught me that sometimes the greatest discoveries come from being brave enough to reach across the impossible and touch something completely different from yourself. Zara's skin shifted to brilliant gold. And you taught me that being different doesn't mean being alone. Sometimes it just means you're waiting for the right person to understand how special you really are. They stood together watching the sunset. Two beings from different worlds who had found in each other something that transcended species, culture, and the vast emptiness of space. Their love had become a bridge between worlds, proving that the universe was smaller and more connected than anyone had dared to imagine. In the growing twilight, as Zara's skin began to glow with its natural light and the first stars appeared overhead, Jake knew that some risks were worth taking. Some connections were worth fighting for, and sometimes the shy ones who surprise you with their boldness end up changing everything you thought you knew about what was possible.